Wrestling Rebooked. Spoiler Andeve, putting wrestling into submission. Welcome to Wrestling Rebooked with Spoiler and Andeve, rewriting your favorite angles the way we want to believe. Putting wrestling into submission. Finally, that time has come. We used to rely on Meltzer, now we bang our own drum. Wrestling Rebooked. Spoiler Andeve, putting wrestling into submission. The Spot Monkey is here, shooting from the hip, back to break more, and ready to let rip. Spoiler is the host. Will his mic be ready to go? He loves a mat clinic, and we're ready to start the show. From Mania to Survivor Series, a wrestling podcast. Each match rebooked, fresh views are cast. Wrestling Rebooked. Spoiler Andeve, putting wrestling into submission. Our finger is on the pulse for all the latest news. What's going on with Vince? We don't really get his views. We love a doc and review, old school to new. I think it's time to tap out. Hit the music. We're through. Wrestling Rebooked. Spoiler Andeve, putting wrestling into submission.
Episode 18 of Wrestling Rebooked, putting wrestling into submission, and we are back. Filling your screens on YouTube as we are now broadcasting on there. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe and follow us on YouTube, as well, of course, Instagram and Twitter, keeping up appearances on both platforms. On today's episode, coming right up, we've got an interview with upcoming British independent star Danny Black is going to be here. We're going to talk to him and get the lowdown on his career so far. So looking forward to that. Before that, we're going to review WWE Hell in a Cell, which has happened within the last week. We're going to match my match play there. And of course, joining me, co-host shooting from the hip, locked inside his own cell, the Spot Monkey, Andeve. How's it going?
Very good. Looking forward to reviewing WrestleMania Backlash Hell in a Cell. Or whatever it's going to be called this time round. Yeah, let's go.
Let's get stuck into it, shall we? So WWE Hell in a Cell, 20th of June, 6-match card. There was a kickoff show with Natalia beating, who was it now? So fond in the memory, it's beaten me down. But Mandy Rose, right, in a singles match. I mean, who cares? But anyway, to the main card, Bianca Belair defeated Bayley inside the cell, 19 minutes and 45 seconds. But here's what we're going to do. We're only going to take 30. So, Andeve, I'm going to stick 30 seconds on the clock.
All right.
And you can tell me exactly what you thought of this match. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'll do my best.
30 seconds starts now.
Okay, so I thought the build was pretty poor, given that it was just raced around Bayley's laugh, which McCaffrey even referenced. Why not make it around who's the best and Banks, etc. The start was a little bit too choreographed, too obviously choreographed. A couple of sort of swinging for chairs and top rope missed punch from Bayley. So it didn't start off in the best fashion, but there's a few nice spots with obviously focusing on Belair's hair, and so that's something we haven't seen before. Come the end, it was a bit better with a sunset flip and some kendo sticks getting involved.
30 seconds.
But it was ultimately a respectable match. It's all right. Large parts, but too choreographed. Doesn't need to be in a cell. Full stop.
About as big a fail as the match itself.
Oh, come on, that was only 35 seconds. Right, seconds then. Let's see what you can do. I spent too much time talking about the build, so why did I do that? Okay, 30 seconds starts now.
Two fantastic performers. Didn't need to be in a cell. Didn't need to have loads of gimmicks with chairs, kendo sticks. Clearly set up for exactly those spots and to take away from the actual athleticism of the competitors themselves. Let them fight in just a normal match, and everyone will love it. If you show this to someone that isn't a wrestling fan, this would be the definition of fake.
Time. They've done that well. But I mean, I hear what you're saying, I guess. I mean, it is a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, isn't it? That's why it's in Hell in a Cell, but it doesn't have to be in Hell in a Cell. Totally right. But that's the way they brand their pay-per-views. Have you noticed as well that they're not really using the cell?
Yeah, I did put that in my notes, but I had to pick what I put in 30 seconds.
Yeah,
I reckon it was. I didn't time it, but it was a ballpark of 10 minutes before it was used.
Really, right?
Yeah.
And the only real decent spot was the KOD onto the ladder at the end, which I thought was
yeah.
Other than that, you're right. You're Hell in a Cell, 2 top performers, bit forgettable.
Should we move on?
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, we had Seth Rollins against Cesaro. Okay, we've seen it at Mania, but it's a sort of match you can sort of dip into many, many times. 16 minutes and 15 seconds. We're going to do a little Q&A. So, Andeve, what were your initial thoughts?
I thought Cesaro looked very strong. There's a couple of times when he was really exploding and delivering some good damage to Rollins. So I thought that's pretty decent. I'm not sure if they went the right way in the end, but it's a pretty decent match. Like you say, Rollins Cesaro, it's a rematch, and I think it might even be a rematch of a rematch, but that's fine. That's fine with these two.
So that's your highlights.
My highlights, I guess, Cesaro did this. There's a great deadlift, picked Rollins up from the ground, which I thought was pretty phenomenal. The swing and the cross Cesaro was decent. That they would probably be my highlights, and obviously the fact that Cesaro is still getting spotlighted. My low light
Go for it.
would probably be sort of torn on this a little bit, but the fact that Cesaro ate the pin.
So that leads us on to the finish.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why. It probably leads to another match. It keeps them both busy. They don't want to be. Cesaro's already been fed to Reigns. They're obviously keeping Rollins slightly away from Reigns. It's just a shame that you have to keep exchanging pinfalls back and forth. But I can also see why they're doing that. So I don't know.
So how would you rebook?
I'd let them do much what they did. Maybe change that ending, but like I said, maybe that ending's fine. So I mean, Cesaro, Rollins, they're in a decent feud, decent wrestlers. Mostly would leave it as it is.
Fine.
So what were your thoughts initially on the match?
So I haven't watched the build, but I was quite excited to see this on the card for reasons that we've talked about before in our Mania episode. I quite enjoyed it, and specifically the last 3 or 4 minutes where Cesaro was pushing hard with the submissions, and then there's the exchanges on the mat. Quite like the way Rollins sort of led the match as well through the earlier parts. So for the most part, I was enjoying the match and the process and the story that they were telling.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it was as good as their Mania match?
No. Mainly because, well, there's 2 reasons actually. 1, the fans.
Yeah.
And 2, there was just that air of expectation with the Mania match because it was the first one, at least in the WWE arena.
Yeah.
Whereas here, the storyline moved on, and with other people coming involved, it just wasn't quite there. So there's your low light. Yeah,
that makes sense. And the highlight of the match then?
Highlights that exchange, Cesaro and his facials and the way Rollins was selling. They clearly know each other well. They clearly have worked together and trained. You can kind of just see in the natural chemistry that they have.
He definitely makes that European uppercut look good. What about the end of the match? Rollins picking up the victory.
So I think it was the right result. And I actually enjoy a sort of roll-up small package, but it just looked a little bit rushed. Whether they had the call to sort of wrap things up or not, I don't know. But it just felt a little bit quick. Yeah. After all those lengthy exchanges, we sort of building up the anticipation for, is he going to tap? Is this going to go a different way? Is he going to get up and curb stomp? All of a sudden, he's just rolled him up. Ugh, don't know.
Okay, so how would you rebook it then? Is it around that ending, or what
pretty much. the answer to that question really lies in the future of the storyline arc, doesn't it? Because you're saying there about keeping him away from Reigns. We then had a promo from Rollins on SmackDown about gimme Reigns. Like we've never seen that before. But yeah, I mean, it's in slightly different positions now, isn't it?
Okay.
So really, Rollins has to have the win, doesn't he?
I guess so. I mean, I guess so. If he's stepping up, or if it pitches another match against Cesaro, then yeah, I guess that makes sense. I suppose the roll up the small package is not what you're expecting. So in a way, that's a positive, isn't it? That's a highlight. Like, actually, I'm expecting Rollins to turn around and do something dastardly, and he actually out wrestles Cesaro, having been out wrestled for the most of the match. So
yeah. Wrap things up there, doesn't it?
Yeah. Next one.
Alexa Bliss against Shayna Baszler. 7 minutes on the nose for this match. What was good?
Shayna Baszler putting people in submissions. Looks good. Looks better than anyone else in the roster. And Alexa Bliss showcasing some of her decent moves, which she has, but you forget because she was a multi-time champion and now she's some character out of a horror movie.
Yeah.
They're my goods.
Not too much different with Bliss. It's probably the first time, at least I've seen in a long while, that she can actually work in the ring.
Right. Are you think that's something related to the injury she had, or?
Not necessarily. No, I just don't think she's been given the chance. When has she last had any sort of decent match? She had that good run a few years ago.
Yeah, I can't remember her wrestling for ages and ages and ages.
Yeah, but she showed here glimpses of being able to work, which is borderline refreshing to see. Baszler, fortunately, like it's just, she's not only is she fighting a girl like almost half her size. It's under the guise of this gimmick, if you can call it that Bliss is playing out with Nia Jax and Reginald in her corner. Could there be more awful booking for someone with a legit background?
So that's anything else in terms of your list? We did goods.
No.
About then?
I'm sorry.
What about the bad aspects of the match then? So you say,
So I'm just not enjoying the Bliss stuff. It's just, she's clearly a good actress, right? In whatever she does. I enjoyed her Moment of Bliss, like interview segment that she used to do, her little run with Nikki Cross. All that stuff was watchable, enjoyable TV. This stuff now is just abhorrent.
How does that? Yeah. I mean, for me, the negatives are, like you're saying, the storyline itself. What is all this supernatural stuff with Reginald and being slapped, but also the stuff just generally, it's a bit convoluted with like Baszler, Jax, Reginald, Wyatt's in the background, or not in the background, but is he in the background? All that sort of stuff, just not very good. And the stare down with Jax, where she does the slap,
it's embarrassing.
Just not for me. It's just not for me at all. I don't know what I'm watching. I'm obviously not the audience that they're looking for there, but there's no need for it. That's the negatives is really like the whole situation they're in, the circumstances they've been placed in. On the plus side, they are giving it their all. They're not phoning it in, but it's pretty rubbish.
That stare down where she had a sort of, was it supposed to be some sort of hypnosis?
Yeah. She did it again on Raw.
It's just embarrassing. That's a classic embarrassed to be a wrestling fan moment.
Yeah, for sure. And it doesn't really, it's not the 90s with Undertaker and Kane, so it doesn't make sense. It's just weird. It's just rubbish. Anyway. All
right, let's move on. Next match. Card picked up, to be fair. Sami Zayn against Kevin Owens. 12 minutes and 40 seconds. Q&A?
Yeah.
Okay, so initial thoughts.
I've seen these two. Well, we've seen these two. People have seen these two wrestle so many times in so many different feuds, or together, or against each other as heels, whatever. And yet, I still love to see it. I enjoyed the match. It was my favorite match on the card.
Yes! So what are the highlights?
I love how aggressive Owens is. I love how aggressive he is. I don't know if he it's beyond strong style or what, but you feel everything he's doing. I absolutely love Sami Zayn's character and how he's developed that and evolved that and tweaking that. And now he's talking about karma. And I love how they then put that story into the match. Zayn did a fantastic counter to the stunner. Zayn had some good high risk stuff to the outside, off the top rope. Sort of senton he did as well, to the outside. Just very enjoyable, very similar to their WrestleMania match. It's quick paced, hard hitting, nice flow.
Any lowlights?
Not really. I wonder what's happening with Kevin Owens. They've been playing off his throat injury, and whoever's on commentary keeps saying like Kevin's hurt, which is a bit weird because that's the point of wrestling, in the kayfabe, to hurt someone. So then, oh no, he's hurt. Oh yeah, that's what they're trying to do. So I thought the commentary could have been better, and I'm not sure where Kevin Owens' direction lies, but for the match itself, not really a low light. I'd like to see it go longer, but that's just because I enjoy these two.
Okay, so the finish.
I'm trying to remember how Zayn picked out the win. I can't remember how it finished now. So I just say I was fine with it. It was really good.
It was a haluva kick, wasn't it? Which he doesn't often win with.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, in the corner. Yeah, and it's quite clean as well, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good finish.
So any rebooking there?
Just give him another 5 minutes.
Fine. Good news is for you is they're fighting again on next week on SmackDown for Money in the Bank qualifier.
Oh yes, I did see that. Yeah. Good. They're great. They're both great. They're both in my top 5.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on the match? Your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to struggle to offer you any kind of variation on opinion there because I thought the same. My initial thought was, God, how many times are we going to see this match? But equally, just enjoy it. Just the way they bounce off each other. We talked about chemistry of Rollins and Cesaro. Ramp it up again here with these two. The facials and the exchanges, some of the exchanges whilst they're on their knees, just fantastic. Like, you're just so believable.
Yeah.
I quite like the sort of borderline refreshing angle with the Owens struggling having compromised breathing, coughing. It was a bit different to his knees blown out or the lower back. So I quite enjoyed that. They come up with a refreshing way to do it.
Any lowlights then?
Not really. I quite like the end.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that haluva kick. He uses almost every match, and almost everyone always kicks out. So I quite enjoyed him getting the pin with it. The low light would be just the fear with WWE that they're just going to go on overkill with it. That's not really a low light for the match. Also, my rebooking, I also would have given them longer. I wrote that exact note. Give them longer.
Yeah. Pretty good though. I mean, you've got 2 decent matches there in Zayn Owen and Rollins Cesaro that are WrestleMania worthy. Not that literally were WrestleMania worthy, but they also are. And that really stands out when you've got a Bliss Baszler match that just, what is that? And then the first women's Hell in a Cell that just doesn't quite
register.
Work. Yeah, register. Yeah.
Yeah. So they really brought the quality of the PPV back up. Okay, so after that, there was a small package on the Reigns Mysterio match that had happened the night before. Just very quickly on that, did you see that? Or
no, I fast forwarded it. I mean, it's one for Tom Colohue, isn't it? Maybe the answer's obvious, but why did they have a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view and then a Hell in a Cell on SmackDown and then a Hell in a Cell on Raw? Lashley fought 2 Hell in a Cells in 2 nights. Now, obviously, that's for ratings and viewings and all that sort of stuff, but it doesn't say much for Hell in a Cell, does it?
No.
It's supposed to be the demonic structure, the et cetera. Here's Lashley 2 nights in a row.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't see. I've seen the highlights of the Reigns on SmackDown, and I watched a bit of Lashley match against Woods. It's very good, but suddenly then 4 Hell in a Cell matches in 3 shows.
Yeah,
a bit unusual. But I'm sure Colohue would say it's just to get eyes on the product and fine.
Watch the space. We'll get it over to him. All right, next up we had the Raw Women's title on the line. Rhea Ripley against Charlotte Flair. It's 40 minutes and 10 seconds. It's pretty good, wasn't it?
Not for me.
Oh, really? Oh, here we go.
No. I saw someone, or I was reading reviews saying how well these two mesh. I don't know.
You think?
It doesn't really when I watch it, they don't have that chemistry. Or maybe I'm missing something, but no, I didn't think it was that good. Tell me why it was. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, two things that you've just mentioned already there in terms of meshing and chemistry. I would agree that Rhea Ripley is still kind of learning her way, because Charlotte led all of this match, both
she definitely
physically and with her facials and psychology and the way she was just dictating the pace. But I mean, that's fine, isn't it? I've got no problem with that.
Yeah, maybe I just wasn't watching it in an enthralled way, but maybe that's because it's off the back of Zayn and Kevin Owens. I mean, I don't know. I've seen lots of reviews saying that, these two, like I say, have a great style. I just felt it was very much leaning on Charlotte. It sort of felt one person would go for a little bit, then the other person would go for a little bit back. And until it got to the latter stages where Charlotte was sort of dropping in backbreakers and the moonsault and stuff to the body flip, I just wasn't really buying it, to be honest.
Do you think that's a product of not really being invested in TV week to week and just dropping in on a match cold? Almost?
Quite possibly. I'm a big fan of Charlotte Flair, but she is massively overexposed. And then this match is a callback to WrestleMania from last year, callback to their previous match where they were in triple threat. I don't know. Maybe it's Rhea Ripley's character, because I haven't followed her from NXT up. Maybe I don't get what she's supposed to be. Is she a heel? Is she a face? They sort of both seem to play heel roles in that match. I don't know. Something for me is missing. I don't know.
In kayfabe, she's definitely a face. In terms of character, that's an interesting one, because look-wise, it's very definite, isn't it? She comes out, with the big punk rock music. Yeah. She's got the piercings, the tattoos, the hair going. So, the look is very striking, to say the least. Mm-hmm. But what she doesn't quite match with that is when she opens her mouth, basically. Mm. So was there scope to turn her heel there, maybe get her a manager and take her in a different direction? Maybe that's what they'll do in time. But potentially what you're saying there, actually, in terms of overexposure, is a lack of depth in the division. And then therefore I just keep going back to these two. Yeah.
I also, there's something that they seem to be building Belair much better than they're building Ripley as the sort of next set through. That's how it feels to me. So maybe you're right, because I'm not as invested week by week in them and the characters. Actually, something's missing from Ripley, whereas Belair I can get on board with, and it something feels more legitimate or genuine about it. But for me, this was the least effective match on the cards. The women's Hell in a Cell also wasn't that great, but this was just, for me, just wasn't effective. And that's just from a pure position of I'm watching this match and nah.
Do you think that's because of where it was on the card?
Maybe, definitely coming after Owens and Zayn, that makes a difference.
Before the main event?
For the main event, maybe. But then you're saying you enjoyed it. You thought it was good.
I did quite enjoy it. What really hooked me was Charlotte from the start. So as soon as she came out and she's in the ring, she just had that face on, and you could just tell that she was on it. I enjoy her matches. There was a series of future shock DDTs that she absolutely nailed and sold, and the moonsault, of course, where she come off the top and then. Flipped, landed it, absolutely nailed it. How many athletes can say do that? Maybe Bianca Belair, actually. But, the match flowed really nicely. And I think a bit of a theme for this PPV, actually, all the people that were working with one another kind of knew each other's games.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough. Maybe I'll go back and watch it. I certainly, hearing you talk there, does anyone else in WWE at the moment have the wide move set that Charlotte Flair does? She can moonsault off the top rope. She's on the figure four submissions. She'll hit you with a spear as well. Natural selection. She's got a lot of strings to her bow. She's really right up there with Cesaro and Rollins, maybe.
She can, rather than just moves, she actually can knit a match together as well.
Yeah,
in terms of flow and locking up and punches, etc.
And she has quick adjustments match by match to the moves that she uses, the nuance in how she approaches matches. So I mean, she's certainly got, maybe Rawlins would be there as well, but certainly a wide set of moves that she can play. On the match though, so let's say I'll go back and watch it, but surely the disqualification takes away from the match in a big way.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. So what are you asking me about the DQ?
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was pathetic.
Interesting. So I quite liked it. And I'll tell you why. For the amount of matches either on this card or generally in WWE that are just no DQ or a default no DQ with some sort of gimmick of some description, like count out / DQ matches are pretty much, like gold dust.
Yeah.
Glitter and sand. And to actually have a match which ended with a DQ because it highlighted the fact that, hey, by the way, wrestling is still this notion where you are fighting each other, not using foreign objects. And to leave the suspense going forward, I thought it worked. I didn't mind it.
I don't disagree on the sort of premise of it, but when you see week in, week out people smashing each other into the steel steps or across the announce tables or whatever, then to chuck that in, it feels like you're a bit short.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a DQ, no worries, have Rhea Ripley or have a hitter with it once, twice, 3 times, and then go, sorry, that's a DQ. I think that's fine, but given what you're used to seeing, it's just a bit like, come off it. I think that was the main reason I felt it was a bit of a ridiculous DQ. And I suppose the other thing is that, and this is secondary or subsidiary, but if you're on a pay-per-view where people are on in cells, smash each other with kendo sticks and all that sort of stuff, and then you're like, oh, you've been disqualified for that. It's sort of, it just comes across a bit of a nonsense. You're like, well, you can be disqualified for that, but you chuck someone into a ladder and that's fine. And of course, there's different stipulations. I get that, but it just then made it more ludicrous, I guess, that you could be disqualified for throwing top of a table at someone. I mean, that's what I thought. But I get the DQ. Fine, you can keep them going. Charlotte could get a win. They can have another match. But I just didn't like the way it was orchestrated.
Yeah, I totally get that. I guess in some ways we're making the same points, really, aren't we?
I suppose, yeah.
Because it is ridiculous to think of what happened, especially what was coming thereafter, which maybe we'll get to here and now. Anything else on Charlotte Ripley before we move on?
No, that's it. That's it from me. You?
Last chance Hell in a Cell match. Last chance, of course, for Drew McIntyre against Bobby Lashley with MVP. Hell in a Cell, 25 minutes and 45 seconds. For me, this is my favourite match for these two. Maybe because I knew, or at least were sold on the fact it was going to be the last one. Mm-hmm. But I quite enjoyed this as far as cell matches go. Did you? Yeah,
I definitely did. I thought McIntyre looked very strong throughout, considering that Lashley is the one with the title and the Almighty in the build. They really did a decent job of McIntyre losing, but
because he knew what was coming.
He didn't go out sort of just lying flat in the middle of the ring. He got on so much. Originally I had it, McIntyre's got a lot of early offence here, and then suddenly you're halfway through the match and McIntyre's still on the offence. So I thought that was very decent. Use the cage, suplex reverse onto the stairs, kendo sticks, he drops him onto the stairs, clothesline off the cell, onto some chairs, a power bomb. That was really, really good. And then Lashley got a small return. But I also like the way that then McIntyre came back and MVP got involved. I thought the intensity from McIntyre was fantastic. Really, really intriguing to watch. Almost borderline heelish, the way he was. He started out. So I wonder if there's maybe a changing coming there in his character as he maybe moves away from the main event scene.
slightly. But yeah, they were fast and furious. There you go, there's a popular reference. Right out the gate, and it certainly hooked me in from the get go.
Yeah.
I wasn't particularly hyped for the match before it.
No. What about the ref bump and mate MVP getting in the ring?
Yeah, fine. The ref bump worked okay. Like the ref, seen some terrible ones in recent times, but I thought that one was well executed. Worked fine. I've got no problem with MVP being involved and bumping. That's fine. And it kind of added to the match.
Yeah, you almost needed that pause, because after MVP had come in and was kicking around, they went back to let's smash the hell out of each other again. And there's the Future Shock DVD onto a chair, and spears and the Claymore. Then there's a Hurt Lock counter that he chucks McIntyre through a table. So you needed that low to get back to the high coming the end of the match. Thought it was pretty decent. As far as Hell in a Cell matches go in 2021, they don't have the same. They're essentially no DQ match inside the cage, rather than what they used to be, where the Hell in a Cell was the key feature. I thought they did a pretty good job, and obviously the result for me was the right one. You've taken McIntyre away, but you've kept him really strong. He's a main event player. Lashley's still got the title, which is making sense. So it's quite a pretty strong match. The feud has done a lot for both of them. Even at WrestleMania, the opening match, they were beating the hell out of each other, and now they're still beating. I think it's been a good arc for the two of them.
Yeah, fine. I agree. I think yes. I actually put in my notes initially that the outcome of the match was fairly unknown until Lashley ducked the Claymore, and suddenly when MVP's in the ring, you sort of knew which way it was going. At that point, you kind of didn't know which way it was going to go. I wanted to get your thoughts on the ending. I thought it was a bit shticky. Classic sort of MVP held his heel down on the floor.
Yeah. Well, did Lashley give him a spear? I can't remember how it ended. How did it end then?
Yeah. So McIntyre's in the corner of the ring, ready to give the Claymore.
Yeah, and he holds
MVP, holds his foot, stops him from doing so. McIntyre turns around to MVP. In comes Lashley to, as you say, then put him down for the 3 count.
I mean, fair enough. If you keep McIntyre strong, he's making some sounds about wanting Cena at WrestleMania. At SummerSlam. So, you don't want him just to drop off the face of the program. But equally now he can't challenge Lashley, which is pleasant because they were fighting last summer. Well, last Backlash, 20, and then it's come full circle. They've had 3 matches maybe. They've been involved in a long program. I don't mind that too much. I think that's fine. I suppose what I would say, what I often say, is that it should be more accentuated. So, you've got these great athletes who've gone through all this in a cell, and the end is someone almost taps his shoelace. Actually make it really apparent. Grab him, I don't know, bite him, or do something that's really, really obvious and apparent. That's where I would go with it. More theatre, more drama,
more theatre. So, overall thoughts on the PPV?
Yes, it's pretty good. I mean, it actually was a WrestleMania Backlash Hell in a Cell, because there's 3 matches there we've seen, or 4 if you include Rhea Ripley from 36 and Charlotte Flair from 36. So there's a lot of the matches weren't fresh matches, but they felt fresh takes. Quite enjoyed it. The pre-show I didn't watch, which you slammed earlier. Bliss and Baszler was minimal in terms of its detriment to the pay-per-view. So I think it's one of the better ones. I think it was better than WrestleMania Backlash. Fine. Yeah, I
think there's a lot of positives to take from that, most of which you already listed, especially in the anticipation of crowds coming back, which again, it would have really ramped this up if there was crowds.
You must be delighted to see the back of the Thunderdome.
I cannot wait. I'll start watching, the weekly churn. I just can't handle that. So absolutely. But no, I enjoyed this. This was good. There's some really, really some quality matches in here. The card was put together mostly quite well. And it was better than Backlash. So on to Money in the Bank.
Yeah, that's all you can hope for, isn't it? If every pay-per-view is better than the last, come 2024, we might be onto some really good stuff.
Yeah. So Money in the Bank next month. We'll look forward to that.
Fantastic.
Time to move on.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, episode 18 of Wrestling Rebooks, section 2, and it's time now to welcome our guest for the episode, upcoming British wrestling star, Danny Black. Welcome to Wrestling Rebooks. How are we doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
We're all good. We're all good. So why don't you kick us off just by telling us, roughly, your background, how you got into wrestling, and sort of what brings you to where you are now.
So my dad was always a wrestling fan when I was younger, and I started watching it through him. I literally just came down to the front room one day and he was just watching it, and immediately I fell in love with it. The first match I remember watching was Jeff Hardy versus RVD in a ladder match, and yeah, I just instantly just fell in love with it because I've always been a fan of comic books and superheroes and all that, and Power Rangers when I was little, and it was basically watching real people doing that stuff. So it just blew my mind, and I was watching it till I got to probably about 12 or something, and then I kind of fell out of it just because I guess it just wasn't cool anymore.
Yeah.
And then I didn't really watch it until I got back into it when I was 16, maybe 15, 16. And I got back into it just from my cousin's a fan as well, and I went round his house and he was just watching a random pay-per-view, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about wrestling. I was just watching it with him, and then he showed me a couple more matches, stuff he thought I would like, and he showed me Ospreay versus Ricochet from Best of Super Juniors. Yeah, because he knew I loved that style, and I instantly just fell back in love with it again. And then literally I think a month or two later, I was looking up training schools.
So how did you go from then? You started looking up training schools. What was it that made you think, I enjoy watching this? I'll tell you what, I'll start training, because I enjoyed watching wrestling for 20 years, but I've never thought about training ever, and I'd be embarrassed if I did. So how did you make that sort of leap or connection?
Well, I've always been, I guess, athletic in a way. I was never particularly into sports itself, one particular sport, I should say. But I've always been into physical activities and stuff. So I did taekwondo when I was 5 till 7, I guess. I did boxing for a bit as well. I also did street dance from the age of 10 till 15, I think. So I had athletic, I've pretty much been training for wrestling without it being wrestling, because there's aspects in all of it, in it, the physical contact sports taekwondo and boxing, and then the movement and stuff of dance, it all cooperates into wrestling. And the main thing that did it for me really was seeing Ospreay, because before that I'd just seen all the WWE stuff, and they're all big American guys, no one like me. And then I see this random white kid with a Union Jack on his knee pad. I'm like, oh, he's from here. And he's not a massive Jack. Well, he is now, but back then he wasn't a massive Jack guy. He kind of looks like me. I could do this.
Where was it? Because on your online profile it talks about Knuckle Lock School of Wrestling. Is that where you started off, or where did you do your training?
So that's mainly where I've trained. But I started at IPW. Which isn't a thing anymore, but I started there, and it was a rough way to start, I guess, because we didn't have a ring that often, so it was literally just thin gym mats on wooden floors, and we was taking bumps on them. Looking back on it, now I wouldn't want to do that, but back then it was I'm wrestling, I'm having fun, I don't care. So yeah, I trained there for 4-ish months, I think, before I started going to what was the Projo at the time, which is now Knuckle Locks, and I was going to both for a bit, and then I just started at Knuckle Locks.
And how did you start then to piece together a particular style or the way you wanted to work? Was there certain trainers you worked with? Obviously I know you mentioned Ospreay, but I'm guessing he wasn't there every step of the way.
No, so we was actually like pretty lucky to get a lot of guest trainers at IPW and at Knuckle Lock. So like we had guest sessions with Shane Strickland, Jack Evans, Osprey, Zack Sabre Jr., Pete Dunne, like all those guys I've trained under. So like we was lucky in terms of that, but like I guess that style came naturally to me just because of like my background in dance, and like I've always had a trampoline in my back garden. Like I love doing flips and that. So it's a funny story. Like the first time I tried to do a flip bump, I accidentally like landed it on my feet. I wasn't even trying to. Like the coach was just saying, like, because for most people they get scared and they like don't tuck enough. So he was like, when you jump, just throw yourself and tuck as hard as you can. So I did, and I like, accidentally landed it on my feet, and he was like, okay. So
You might have something here.
What's that?
You might have something here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice. So did the guys you mentioned there, and obviously they're giving you lots of advice on the physical side of stuff. Was there any kind of mentoring, anything about how to handle the maybe the facials or the psychology side of wrestling?
Yeah, of course. So like different trainers brought different things. We have or had Eddie Dennis as a regular trainer at Knuckle Locks for like the last bit of it before lockdown, and he's really good at like the psychology side of wrestling and like making stuff make sense within the match and like putting it together really well, and not just like doing things for the sake of them. Like everything has a meaning in that. He's really good at that stuff, and training under like Pete Dunne a few times. He obviously knows what the WWE want because he was working with them, and he's like passed on tips that like Regal gave him in the performance center and stuff like that. So it's like it's really cool having the opportunity to train with loads of different people because you get like so many different opinions and like tips and all that, and you put them all together.
I've got two follow-up questions there then based off what you're talking there about training. First one is, I saw someone online describe you as not high flying and you prefer to stay grounded. But having watched a lot of your stuff on your YouTube channel, I'm seeing the the second rope diamond cutter that you do, senton bomb, hurricane runner. I would describe you as high flying. How would you describe your style?
Yeah, definitely high flying. I don't think the person that described me as that has ever watched me wrestle.
No, not. Yeah.
I definitely a high flying, like definitely inspired by like the lucha style of wrestling. Also, like I love New Japan because that's what got me back into it, the best of the Super Juniors. So like watching all the junior heavyweights over there, there's like loads of like high flying influences, and like some of my favorite indie wrestlers that I discovered whilst discovering independent wrestling. Like I was going back and watching people like Jack Evans and Loki and Amazing Red in like TNA and Ring of Honor. So like all my favorites have always been like the high flying style. So I feel like that just and because of my like size and everything, it naturally came to me.
Yeah, and certainly in some of your sort of more recent matches compared to those earlier matches, you can see the pace in terms of your sort of standing moonsault or your kicks and that sort of stuff. And like jumping, like you could, I mean, I definitely describe it as a high flyer. So it was just when I was looking at someone's like, no, it's not high flying. First day grounded. I was like, nah, surely not. Just like another follow up as well is that you talked about when you first started training, you were on those basically just a thin gym mat. And one thing I think I noticed about your style is that even from your very early matches that you can find online, you're an excellent seller. When you sell moves, you really commit to it. It really looks like someone has dropped you on your head and you can't move. Where do you think you get that from? Do you think that links back to your early training on sort of those thin mats, or is that just something that's come naturally to you?
Well, first off, thanks for that. I proper like pride myself on trying to like sell the best I can because obviously like it's a two-person thing, isn't it? Like if I'm selling good, it's going to make the other person look way better, and then me in the same way. So yeah, thanks. I don't know. I guess it's just like I've never like hesitated or like worried about like getting hurt, I guess. So like I 100% throw myself into like everything I do. So like if there's a way to make something way more brutal, that look way more brutal, then I just do it. Like I don't really think about things. So yeah, I guess it's like
it's
the character, the kid without fear, is like kind of not really a character. Like whether you call it like dumb or whatever, like I don't really care. Like I'll just try stuff.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think selling is a bit of a lost art. Certainly, if you listen to some of the sort of Jim Cornette and that, they would tell you that selling today just doesn't exist the way it does, like it used to. But I sort of even went back to 2018 against Donnelly, I think, and even then, it must have been one of your early matches. Look very different to how you do now, but you could selling and bumping really, really well. So yeah, I mean that's.
And also, like having training sessions with people, especially Pete Dunne. He like really focused on like the selling side of things and was like going through that, and had exercises where we would just like basically take a heat, which is where like someone just beats you up for a while and like just sell, and he'll give you tips like as you go. So yeah, that definitely helped.
I wanted to ask you about your kind of look and ring gear and entrance as well. Is that all deliberately knitted together in terms of with your style? I guess it makes it easier to move wearing the red pants that you do.
Yeah. So like all my gear and everything's inspired by Daredevil from Marvel Comics, because his like tagline is like the man without fear. So I just took it and changed it to the kid without fear. And it just started as like, I wasn't even going to do that. I literally just like couldn't think of a logo for my tights. Like when it was proper like early in my stages of getting onto shows. And I just put the D and the B together, like the D and the D on like the Daredevil logo. And I just had that, and I didn't even have like the nickname or anything for a while. And then I think someone like another son get the horns on the hood and all that. And it just like gradually over time all like built up and came together.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's you can kind of see that the way it's. I think sometimes you see a lot of, to be fair, this is indie and in States or whatever, gimmicks that don't really fit the style or the personality of the wrestler. But you know, I think you've managed to get that working smoothly, and it comes across as well.
Oh, thank you.
So, can you remember any of your early matches then? Like, when did you think was there a particular match that you kind of thought, right, this is definitely for me, I've got something here, I can go with this?
It's hard because like I've had a couple moments like that where it's like, so like, I remember obviously my early matches just being like super nervous for them, like especially my first ever match on a show. Like I could barely breathe before I went out. Like my music was playing and like my mouth was so dry I didn't want to go out.
Yeah.
So yeah, like especially at the start, I was really nervous, and that like obviously not great as no one is when they start really. But yeah, like I found as I was like wrestling better and better people as time went on, like things started clicking. So like having matches with like Connor Mills, like he's great. And he like carried me through a lot of matches like in my early stages. People like Carlos Romo, had a couple matches with him, and like things was just clicking in the match. I'm like, oh, this is what it means to be a good wrestler when I was like wrestling him. And then like even further when I started working in Progress, like just everyone there is like top level talent, like the best in the country. So like when you're just around them and wrestling them, you're gonna get better just from being in that environment. And yeah, especially matches with people like Ridgeway and Lycos, and there's like pretty much everyone at Progress I've had a match with, like I've gotten better and better each time.
Any particular standout for you?
There's a few favorites I've had. Like I've really enjoyed pretty much every match I've had in Progress. Like, I'm really proud of that body of work, which is great because it's like the biggest audience I've had for any of my matches. So it's good that I think they're good. But my match with Ridgeway I'm really proud of. Like I know that's one of my dad's favorites from when he watched it. My match with Lycos, because like I've looked up to Lycos for a long time. Like when I first found out about British wrestling and I was first going to shows, like he was one of my favorites on shows. And it was like a dream match for me that I didn't think was happen because he was retired for so long. And then when he came back, I was like, okay, I'm going to wrestle him. And then I got to do it in Progress. So that's great. Jody Fleisch, of course, was like amazing. It's like, he's like a legend, isn't he? And like for the style that I like to do, like he was doing it back in 2002 in Ring of Honor when I was 2 years old, and he's still doing it now. Like, it's insane. And yeah, there's a few matches that have been taped. Obviously, like I can't say who they're against yet, but yeah, there's a few that like I'm really proud of that are still to come out.
Yeah. The latest episode that's on the WWE Network, 113, I think, is your match with Fleisch, isn't it? Actually, the commentators do a good job. I'm not sure if you've watched it back, of making that reference a few times of how long he's been around, obviously how young you are, and then like the meshing of the two styles. That's a really good match. Nice little. It's not long. Doesn't need to be, but exchange between you two are good, and promos at the end.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I feel like the promo thing, like I was really uncomfortable with doing it at the start of Progress because I hadn't really had to do them anywhere else, and I'm not like a generally confident speaker like in front of people. So yeah, like doing the promos, especially at first, like I think you can tell, like when we did the tag team tournament promos, like I was so awkward in that we had to retake it like 10 times just for me to get my words out. But I feel like the more I've done, like the more comfortable I'm getting. So yeah, that's definitely helped.
Is that something you're still working on?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm nowhere near like the level of most of the other roster, to be honest. But like considering like where I was before, where I couldn't get my words out and stuff like that, I've definitely improved. But yeah, I've got loads of room to improve still.
That's good to have the attitude though, right? Right, as opposed to kind of thinking you're the complete package.
Yeah, I'm nowhere near that. And like being on a roster like Progress is like humbling, isn't it? Because like they're literally the top in the country. So like if you think you're the best, you're just deluded. Look at all the people in the locker room. Like there's Ridgeway, Coronel, Lycos, like everyone.
So thinking about those sort of those rosters with great depth, so like the Progress one or Red Pro, when you're obviously looking for, like you say, a good dance partner, with another good wrestler makes you a better wrestler, makes for a better match, styles make fights, etc. But also, is there an element of, or how far is there an element of competition between you? Because obviously you're trying to get noticed, but the best way to get noticed is to have a good match with someone else, but then they're also getting noticed. So like, how do you guys balance, and girls balance that in the locker room?
Yeah, I think it's like healthy competition. Like I've been lucky enough where I haven't like been in many locker rooms where it's like nasty competition. Like, oh, my match was way better than yours, like stuff like that. It's like, I feel like everyone, especially at Progress, just because that's like the only locker room I've been in recently. It's like everyone like definitely uplifts everyone else. Like if you have a good match, like they've got a monitor in the back and everyone watch it as they're being taped. And like when you come back, like if you have a good match, like everyone tells you you've had a good match, and especially like the more experienced people, they'll like take the time out to like give you feedback and tips on bits you can do here. So it's definitely healthy competition, but I see it as like competition with myself. Mm-hmm. So like I want every match to be better than the last one I've had, like no matter who it's with, just to like show myself that I'm getting better each time. I don't really focus on like other people, to be honest.
That's a good way to be. So what are the ambitions for the future going forward?
Short-term ambitions is to like just be as many places as possible in and around the UK, and like obviously when things open up again, I'd love to like wrestle abroad again. Like I've done.
Go back to Italy, perhaps. I saw you had a match in Italy. That was a
Yeah, I've been to Italy 2 times now, I think. I'd love to go back there. Like all the Italian talent are like really good out there, and it's like it's a really small scene, but the fans there are really good because they're like they get to see wrestling so rarely that they're just like so up for it when it happens. So yeah, I'd love to get like some more broad bookings, and yeah, just experience like independent wrestling on a worldwide basis. Like I'd love to go to obviously like Japan, Mexico, America eventually.
Hopefully that possibility isn't too far away now, right? As we slowly start opening things up, shows start to come online a bit more. Maybe online is the wrong word, but it starts to happen a bit more.
Yeah. I've definitely like got a way more full calendar since the exposure from Progress. Like I've had so many new places contact me, which is great. So yeah, I just want to get out there as much as possible.
Get your face as many places as possible.
Yeah.
Well, slightly off-piece question. We just wanted to ask you if you think there's anything really that in the internet wrestling community, podcasters in general, could do to kind of elevate the independent scene and help get things back on track.
I don't know. I guess it's a tough one, isn't it? I guess like I see like on Twitter all the time people complaining about shows and like saying how like if anything's bad on a show, but like you rarely see people like hyping up things that they think is good. So like I'd say like it's fair to have an opinion if something's bad. Like that's fair, voice it. Like it's fine. But like if you think something is good, especially like go out of your way to tweet that as well. So like there's this one fan on Twitter, I think it's Davey Wrestling or something. Like he tweets about progress all the time, and it's just like really cool to see the positivity because obviously like especially towards the start they had some like rocky bits with fans, and like we know like we're getting a decent amount of viewership, but like not many people are tweeting about it. They're just like tweeting about the bad things. So I guess it would be cool if like more people went out their way to tweet the good things as well as the bad things. You
think, I mean, like England go and lose against Germany, then everyone's just going to be about how bad England are, right? It's just kind of a natural tendency is to want to voice something that you don't like has gone your way. Exactly. It's definitely natural to like want to get the bad things off your chest. Right. But in wrestling, of course, everything is slightly different because you never quite know, who or what is in kayfabe and who isn't. But obviously the online issue is something that's been apparent in wrestling for a number of years now, right?
I guess with the wrestling as well, you're rebooking or booking it exactly how you'd want to. So the wrestling fandom is similar to, you might get Star Wars fandom or whatever, where you're like, no, this is how, like you almost want to own the show and the booking yourself and say, this is what I would do and this is how I would do it in a way that you can't quite do with the England football team or whatever. And I also say that actually you're right about accentuating the positives. I can't remember the name of the venue now, but I've seen progress a few times in the upstairs of a pub in North London, and that makes it sound like it's smaller than it was, but actually there's sort of 300 people in the crowd, and the quality of wrestling is actually excellent. The quality, you're not going. It's really good quality, and like a really passionate crowd, and the two things go together, really well. And also then at halftime or the interval, whatever, you're chatting to the wrestlers and buying some of their merch. So you're definitely right. There's room to push forward those positives before we start saying, oh, I'd have booked it like this, or I want this person to go over. Yeah, exactly.
All right, Danny, where can we find you, follow you?
Online. So Instagram and Twitter is DannyBlack_99. Danny Black Pro Wrestler on Facebook like page thingy. I've got a YouTube channel where I've been posting highlight MVs of my matches recently. It's just Danny Black. You'll find it if you type in like Danny Black Wrestling or something on YouTube. Should come up. That's pretty much it.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and wish you all the best as things start to pick up again, hopefully, and for the rest of your career, of course. And maybe we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
Welcome. Cheers.
Wrestling Rebooked. Spoiler Andeve. Putting wrestling into submission. Welcome to Wrestling Rebooked with Spoiler Andeve. Rewriting your favorite angles the way we want to believe. Putting wrestling into submission. Finally, that time has come. We used to rely on Meltzer. Now we bang our own drum. Wrestling Rebooked. Spoiler Andeve. Putting wrestling into submission. The Spot Monkey is here, shooting from the hip, back to break more, and ready to let rip. Spoiler is the host. Will his mic be ready to go? He loves a Mac Clinic, and we're ready to start the show. From Mania to Survivor Series, a wrestling podcast. Each match rebooked, fresh views are cast. Wrestling Rebooked. Spoiler Andeve. Putting wrestling into submission. Our finger is on the pulse for all the latest news. What's going on with Vince? we don't really get his views. We love a doc and review, old school to new. I think it's time to tap out. Hit the music. We're through. Wrestling Rebooked. Spoiler Andeve. Putting wrestling into submission.